Okay, it is 6 p.m. We've got a regular meeting here at council chambers, and we're calling this meeting to order. Before we move on, we've got a quorum, so we've got a quorum, so we're gonna pledge allegiance to the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Bow our heads. Good evening, Father. We thank you, and we're always grateful for your constant dependability, Father, that you're there even when we're not. Father, we appreciate that very much. We thank you for always attending our meetings here at City Council. We thank you for your watch over the city of El Campo. Father, we thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us for life itself. Father, this evening as we gather together, Father, we ask that you again be present with us as we make decisions for our citizens. Father, that you would give us the wisdom that comes from only above. Father, that we would rely on that. Also just ask that you would keep our citizens in good health, prosperity, and that this town would become evident around about, that we would grow, and that your blessing would rest upon us from now and in the future. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, we're going to move into item number 4, public comments. At this time, any person with city-related business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the city council in compliance with the Texas Opens Meeting Act. City council is limited to making a statement of specific factual information in response to the inquiry or reciting existing policy, but may not discuss, deliberate, or take any action on any item. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The issue may be placed on a future agenda for consideration. And at this time, we don't have any public comments, so we're gonna move on to item number 5, consent agenda, approval of city council regular meeting, January 27, 2025 at 6 p.m. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the city council regular meeting minutes.
I'll second.
We got a motion by Councilman Koblenz and a second by Councilman Wallace. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item number 6, items for individual consideration. Number 1, Resolution R 2025-08, awarding off-system water main upgrades for the Town and Country Neighborhood Street Reconstruction Phase 1 project to Ramrod Utilities LLC, and authorizing the city manager or designee to execute all related documents.
This is a piece of the Town and Country project that we have carved out. It was previously included in the total bid award that we rejected in November. We can get this cheaper by having the experts do this, and we've worked with Ramrod on a number of projects, North Wharton, South Wharton, some of the emergency repairs on Avenue C. Because they're in the area, the mobilization costs have gone way down. They also own their own equipment, so their costs are significantly cheaper. The cost of this is $210,000, $210,324.46. This would be pulled out of the bid package. It's going to go back out when we bid the Town and Country project. Now, there will be additional water work when we bid that project. That's correct, right? Yeah. But this piece will be pulled out.
All right, would anybody like to make a motion on Resolution R 2025-08?
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution R 2025-08. Do I need to say the amount of money?
No, I think the resolution's fine. It's included in that.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, how do we, what is the bidding procedure? Why are we not bidding this out?
We're going through the cooperative purchasing system, Texas Interlocal Purchasing System, which does all that for us. It's approved through our charter, recognized statewide,
It's in,
as guaranteed to be the lowest price.
it's in our charter, you said?
Yeah, that we can use purchasing cooperatives in lieu of bidding.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think that would be important to make note of when we start doing this. That way that you don't have questions from the citizens why. It looks like we're just giving it all to Ramrod. And
I hear you.
They appear to be doing a great job, so, yeah. Okay,
Yep,
thank
we'll
you.
make sure we include that in future narratives. Good point, thank you, Councilmember Ward.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on Resolution R 2025-08. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank y'all. Moving on to item number 2. Resolution R 2025-09, authorizing the sale of surplus Zoll X Series monitor defibrillators and the purchase of refurbished LifePak 15 monitors, and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to the transaction.
All right, good evening. I won't go into too much detail since it's all in the narrative there, but we have the 5 Zoll monitors to sell that we no longer need, and we'd like to purchase 3 used of the LifePak 15 monitors to put on all our command vehicles, so our captain vehicle and an anonized vehicle. That way we have them to be able to better assess the patients when we first respond to these scenes. I was able to negotiate with Master Medical Equipment and get more money for the trade-ins if we buy the used life packs from them. So I recommend that we could make that trade, sell those 5 and buy the 3.
So, no cost.
We actually end up with $1,200 credit with them, $1,235.05 in credit. So nothing out of the EMS.
We're not taking an inferior product either, right?
No. A lot of people still use the LifePak 15, and the LifePak 15 is actually what we had before the Zoll monitors, and they're still expected to have parts and service for 10+ years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 2025-09 as presented.
A second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor to approve Resolution R 2025-09 as presented? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good job,
Thank
Gary.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item number 3. Resolution R 2025-10, authorizing the submission of of fiscal year 2026 Criminal Justice Grant Program application to the Office of the Governor Public Safety Office in the amount of $1,424,179, and authorizing the city manager to be the official representative in all matters pertaining to the city's participation in the Criminal Justice Grant Program.
Don't be shocked, don't have sticker shock with that 1 million. We put that amount in there because of this, what we're gonna ask for is 1.2 million, a little over, for the RMS CAD system. That would include for the police department and dispatching for police, fire, and EMS. We made it, we have a vendor, and they gave us an estimate for probably the best system you'd ever find anywhere. I don't think we're gonna go with that. I didn't want to put, in the past, I've seen people put not enough money in their grant, and then they get the grant and they go, well, that's not really the product we wanted. My expectation is at the end of the day, we can get something under 300,000 that would suffice us. So the way this process will work is once we put in for the grant, obviously there's no guarantee that we get it. There's no match, so if we get the grant, it won't cost the city anything. What we've based this upon is improvements to our efficiencies so that we can better track crime and also to take our resource and put it to where the crime is happening. And so we kind of rolled that in with the concept of having more cars, because we do have an issue of our current fleet. There are times when we have to use a vehicle 24 hours in a day. We've built in 3 cars here. Again, my crystal ball is we won't get this full amount, but we'll get enough, I think, if we do get the grant at all, that we'll still have an excellent system, built in a little safety net in that. And I don't know, part of the issue that we will look at as we get into it, if we were to get this grant, then we'll have fire and EMS on board. I'm not going to approve a system unless they're happy with it. Most of these systems are kind of similar, but we'll be looking for a package that will handle everything for us. And you know, as I said in my write-up, the one we have is well over 20 years old, and it's not a very good system. It works. We get it to work every day, but my opinion is we're going to have to move forward pretty soon. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. So this is a no-match grant, and you said about your crystal ball that you, and we all understand that. So you're just going to make it fit in whatever the grant will pay you, and you.
It depends.
Is that
If
kind of
if
what
they
you're
told me
thinking?
they were only going to give me 50,000, I'd say, no, thank you. I mean, I'm guesstimating that around 300,000 will get us a really good top-tier system at today's market. And this one is a 5-year type package like we did with utilities. So if we get the grant, we'll have 5 years worth of the service, everything included in it. But you gotta be careful, because at the end of that 5 years, we gotta be able to afford that recurring service agreement. So that's part of what we'll be making sure, that we don't buy something that will, right now, for 5 years, you can say yes, but then the 6th year, whoever's on council, maybe you or someone else, they'll go, why in the world are we, gonna have this huge maintenance agreement? So that's part of what we're gonna look at before we make a final decision. Is it something that we can actually afford, the best that we can get within our means?
So basically, this will come back again, even though you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is a need, not a want.
This is very much a need.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, the system that you think we're gonna get, or you would suggest we get, is about 300,000. So you've asked for 4 times that in the grant.
We did, because what I've found is, in my experience with these grants is that generally, I'll give you an example. Last year, the OLS grant, they call us because they have this pool of money among different people, and they say, well, we can give you X. And then it becomes that, for lack of a better word, games playing of, we'll give you 100 versus whatever. I'm building that into this, because I don't want to ever come. When I first got here, there was a grant for body-worn cameras, and I'm not trying to blame past administrations, but I guess I am, is that it wasn't near enough to get us what we needed. And so I turned it down, and with city manager's approval, because I was like, I'm not going to get something that we won't use, or it's not up to standards. So I'm building in a big cushion here. I don't, again, I don't think that the cars, we know that cost. It's pretty straightforward. The technology is very flighty, for lack of a better word.
My next question is probably not directed, it's more to city manager Sladek and finance director. So this wasn't it's a need, but we didn't address it in the budget.
I think,
So,
yes, sir.
so if we don't get the grant, we deem this to be a need, how are we gonna purchase this?
Well, as I said before, here, when I say need, it's something I think we need for improvement. Right now, we have a computer system, and it works. I'm not saying that we don't have one that actually does certain things, but it's very limited based on the technology is 20 years old. So I think this would greatly improve our services. So we do have a system that we dispatch fire, EMS, police. It works. So in that regard, I think my idea of need would be like, what does David, the police chief, need? Versus we do have the need. So we have a computer system right now. So this is an improvement to that. So I don't think it would literally be, we have the need to have a computer system, and we have it. So I can't say that, and I know what you're saying, it's not supplanting. So we can't supplant with a grant. And that's a legal term, but it means, hey, you're supposed to have an officer, but then we'll just go get a grant for it and then not pay. So no, it's not that. This is something that's actually an improvement. In fact, part of the grant parameters is we have to show what we expect as far as improvement. And so that, in that regard, I think we're kind of talking the same, but it's a little bit different as far as the word need.
Well, the right system can do so many things.
Yes.
It can track where the officers are, which is a safety benefit for them. And that's, I want to make sure that if we're going to get a system, we get the best system that we possibly can with the most bells and whistles to going in. I'm not against applying for the grant.
understand.
I just understand that if these are needs, and this is 20 years to replace a computer system, there's better out there. So we just need to be cognizant of that because we bought those body cameras and car cameras. And I just don't want that surprise coming
Right.
back. How are we gonna fund it if we?
Oh, and again, if we don't get grant funding on this, I will be back during the budget process in the
Yeah.
future to ask for it.
It would
It's
be
kind of like the body
financed.
worn cameras that we did the same thing.
That's one thing I wanted to ask is, is there a possibility, you've already got some of the basis for the funding for this already, and you know what you could, you know the amount that you would need for a good system that'll serve us well. Can we go ahead and plan to put that in the budget in the 25, 26, and you'll have it there?
Yeah,
thi-
that's his point, I think.
Yes,
I mean, I'm
I think
saying,
that's Councilmember
Right.
yeah, I mean,
You
go ahead and
could-
put
you
it
could
in
do
there,
that.
though. I'm
Right.
saying, don't bet on the grant, just put it in there now in the plan.
That's my
Right.
point.
Yeah, okay, all right, I was just
Right.
making sure.
And again, it's hedging your bets, because if we get the grant, wonderful, but if we don't, we can move
We're
forward.
money
Yeah.
ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and that number wouldn't be this thing. I'm not
Right,
gonna
right,
put it
no,
all
put
and
a
say,
more reasonable
I
number
want
there, yeah.
$2 million and then
Right.
I don't spend the 2 million. So that, and that part of the deal with grants, sometimes it's frustrating, is because it's all run out of the federal government and it trickles down into the state and into us. And they put it out and they go, oh, and by the way, in 3 weeks, you gotta have this in. And so we're scrambling to try to get numbers for them. And they're pretty good about it. We've had luck with like the Operation Lone Star, to where, we didn't get the full amount, but we were able to go back in there and change it up and get as much as we could out of it. So if we get this one, I think we'll have a similar ability to then go back, and you have to justify it, but, they've been pretty good about, hey, this is the pool of money we have, and you could get this much, and we can say yay or nay on that. The cars are pretty straightforward. We know about the pricing on that. The technology is you've got to get them to come out and decide how many people have access. There's so many variables in that's why I kind of went overboard on that number, just to make sure we're safe.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-10.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second on the floor to approve Resolution R 2025-10. Is any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 4. Discussion and consideration of funding wastewater treatment plan improvements to a public works facility.
Yes, we went out to bid on the improvement to the wastewater treatment plant last month in January. And it was good news. It was 1.5 million. The total price listed in your packet includes engineering. Originally, that estimate was right at 1.329 million, so he was closer than we were with the previous 2 projects. Interestingly enough, same engineering firm, different engineer on that last project. So the good news is we thought that the wastewater treatment plant improvements were going to come in around 3 million, and we did see a big spread on that. You haven't awarded that because we don't know how we're going to pay for that. Originally, this project was supposed to be included with the 2021 COs. And the reason that you're not able to use those COs is you need to use all those COs for Avenue F. And that project is under construction right now. They have torn down the existing storage tank, above-ground storage tank. The reason Avenue F was having to go, and it's kind of a trickle effect, was that Highway 71 project went over budget so significantly, and that was replacing that 100-year-old cast iron line on 71. So here we are today, and this is a good position to be in because, Steve, we actually know how much it's going to cost. Or rather, this is, to your point, when you go out estimating how much it's going to cost, and then you issue debt, and then you come back and you don't have enough money, you're in the position we're in today. And so now we know how much we need for the wastewater treatment plant and what that number looks like. Because of that, we've got the engineering paid for already, but we will need to issue debt to cover the construction of the wastewater treatment and plant improvement. These improvements are not a want, they're a need. If we don't do these improvements, we won't comply with TCEQ. They're long overdue. And we're confident we can get it done. We had good bids, we had a lot of bids. The reason this project took so long, and it did take a long time, we had to redesign the project because all the projects were coming in so high. Otherwise, this project was gonna run $5 million. And so to get what we wanted at the same, they completely redesigned the project midstream. The second piece of this is the Public Works facility. You bought the house in March of 2022, which is about 3 years ago, and we need to decide what to do going forward, whether you want to go ahead and lump sum the Public Works facility in this debt issuance. We couldn't do that last year because we would have gone above our debt threshold of the 10 million. So we had to hold off. So we're asking you if you want to go ahead and include this in this package. First, do you want to issue the debt for the wastewater treatment plant? And I'm recommending that you do. And the second thing is, do you want to issue debt for the Public Works facility? Now, with full disclosure, that will cost you around a penny, a little over a penny on your tax roll. That's a tax increase that would cost you this year. Brittany has the numbers on a slideshow so you can see exactly what we're talking about as the debt. So tonight, you need to decide, do you want to issue the debt for the treatment plant, and do you want to issue the debt for the Public Works facility, or do you want to wait on the Public Works facility? We're not asking you to decide what to do with the property, but if you're gonna move forward with that, we've included $3.5 million. That allows us enough funds to get the architect paid for as well. And so that's where we're coming from on that. Our position at the city, at the staff level, is that this public work facilities is also a need, not a want. The existing building was built in 1981. It is not in good shape at all, and this cost isn't gonna go down. It's a penny this year, and it'll be 3 or 4 pennies if the longer you wait. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And the way your debt is structured, it kind of holds it steady. And so we're happy about that. It does result in a tax increase. We feel like a penny is palatable for a $250,000 home. You're talking $25 a year. On a monthly escrow account, that's $2. And this is something that we badly need, and it is on the corridor of East Jackson, so that could offer an improvement to the way the corridor looks as well. Brittany, do you want to go ahead and pull up the slide? Do we have those? Yeah, okay, here we go.
Courtney, while she's walking up, I'm irritated with the price of $3.5 million.
Is it too high, low?
The building's there.
The building's there, we have to add on to it.
I would hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the scope is, but $3.5 million for a building that's already there is just atrociously expensive. And I don't know if that's because we're a city and we're getting to pay these architecture fees where we get to pay them based on how much they tell, it's just,
That's true.
you can go around this town and look at the newest houses built. I don't think any of them are anywhere close to what you just said,
Yeah.
how much nicer they are.
So to leave the house up and add on to it's 2.6. To tear the house down and to completely demolish it, it's around 3.1. And so we were adding in layers to cover architecture fees and if we had to do any environmental. But you're right, I mean, that's a huge cost for, how many square feet were we estimating?
So what you're saying is if you went with keeping the house the way it is and you did the additions, which is I think what the staff wants to do, if that's the case, then this could come in a lot lower than the 3.5. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
okay.
we're not asking you to
Yeah.
decide how much debt tonight.
No, I understand.
We're just asking you to decide to direct us to
You're
get debt.
What in the worst case scenario?
Worst case
Yeah,
scenario.
yeah.
I just had construction people at my house for 5 months. Did a major reconstruction, and it didn't even come close to that.
That's kind of the sentiment that I'm
And it's, my house is a house, and that's a house. What's the difference?
We can get a whole complex built plus covered parking for $3.5 million on a new piece of property and sell that building.
Yeah,
I mean, renovating a 1935 building is hard to swallow. That's $800 a square foot.
I know.
I'm not opposed. I think it would be beautiful. I think coming into this town, you could see it, but
I thought you just described that it was cheaper to leave it and renovate it than it was to build a new one.
It
Isn't
is.
that what y'all just said?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It
That's what they
is,
just said.
because you will be adding on to the back.
Right, we're actually tripling the square
Right.
footage of it. so
Yeah, you,
Yeah.
It's not just for that.
You need to show the layout.
Do we have it?
I didn't bring it.
Well, how can you, hold on, now that's frustrating. You're asking us to make a decision on a $3.5 million investment on a building, and we don't have anything we can look at to know what we're making a decision on?
I'm not actually asking you to make a decision on the building today. That would be a conversation for another day. I'm asking you to direct us whether you want to explore funding this with debt or not. And so the decision on whether the house goes or stays, that conversation will have to happen. Well, we're creating a ceiling, not a floor, on how much this debt is. And unfortunately, we didn't want this, the way I worded this item, did not involve what the future layout's gonna look at. Like, it was, here's how much this building could potentially cost, and I know that that information is relevant for you to make that decision, I acknowledge that, but that is,
Time out real quick. We're just now talking about how we've issued debt or agreed upon a debt, and all the projects that we've issued that debt for are coming back over budget. So why wouldn't we get this final price of what it would cost to do this before we would go out, so, to issue the debt? So that way we had a firm price where we knew where it was. We are not learning from our mistakes, we're actually trying to repeat that.
If we're gonna issue that much debt on the plant wastewater and the new, why don't we take it to the voters? They're the ones that's gonna have to pay for it.
if they reject the debt on the wastewater treatment plant, unfortunately, you'll have to raise rates without doing debt, and I'm not sure how that would be
Well, I
structured.
could understand that, that's a need. Everybody's gonna have the wastewater, but the public works building, why can't we take that to the voters?
You could issue general obligation bonds and take it to the voters. I do not think you can do that this May. It would be the following May.
But that's what I'm thinking, it's 7 people of us that are gonna sit up here and decide to spend $3 million when it comes out of everybody in the city's pocket. We did it with the fire truck, we took it to the voters.
I think my
That's about the
biggest,
same kind of money.
okay, so can we go back to the issuing the 1.5 million for the wastewater treatment plant? Okay, we're over budget. Previous councils provided the funding to do these projects. ARPA provided funding to do these projects. The debt was issued for this, and it went over budget. We increased taxes have been increased, but fees have been increased. And now, since we're over budget, we're asking the taxpayers again to pay for something that was already budgeted. I think that there's gotta be some kind of accountability there of how did we miss out on $1.5 million? How did we go that much over? In my business, somebody would have been terminated if you were 103%.
We completely agree, and that is why we are no longer using those engineers. We completely agree with you, but we also recognize the fact that costs have gone up so high in the last few years. So it was either eat the cost increase or not do the project. And as a reminder, every single one of these projects was approved by council. So it was brought to you, back to you after we were awarded the funds. And unfortunately, you're put in a difficult position. Do we replace the 100-year-old line that's way over budget, or do we leave it in the ground? And that's the position you've been placed in. We're reactive and not proactive, and that's the nature of it when we don't want to increase fees or don't want to increase rates. And so I understand the reluctancy. An option would be to go ahead and issue the debt for the wastewater treatment plant. We, though, at the staff, acknowledge that the cost of the issuing debt separately for the public works facility will cost you extra financial advisor fees and bond counsel fees. Those things are not cheap. They're 6 figures each. And so that is why we paired it together and are asking you to consider adding them together. And again, we're setting a ceiling, not a floor. You may not issue the debt for $3.5 million for that building. We would have a lot more time. We have time between now and the debt issuance to really hem that in and see exactly what that looks like. You will be making the award for the architect, and you would be making the award for the constructions. These would have to come right back in front of you.
One last thing. So has staff gone and looked at the budget to find this $1.5 million to cover the wastewater treatment, to make cuts in various areas, whether it's employees or it's other projects, or there was interest being accrued for all these years. We had increased sales tax. What about fund balance? My heartburn on this is, council approved it, debt was issued, taxpayers have been paying for what they thought they were gonna get, and if it was 1 year, Courtney, I'd be all over and say, let's issue the debt. But it's been 3 and 4 years that this has been going on, and that is a failure of oversight, and we can't ask the taxpayers to pay again without taking a hard look at ways that we can finance it from within, without issuing more debt.
I see no way to fund 1.6 million in your operating budget out of the utility fund. You cannot use sales tax for this. This is not a general fund project. This will not affect the tax rate. This is a utility project. Unfortunately, the project has to be done. So if you elect not to issue the debt, we will have to scale back on it and try to do this project in pieces and hope TCEQ passes us on our permitting. That's the point we would be at. It would be cutting us off at the knees.
And they can levy $10,000 a day.
But that goes back to what I said. We've already issued the debt. We already had the plan in place, and we're now saying, you're basically, staff is coming to council saying, we need more money. If you don't do it, we're gonna get punished. You're making us the bad guys.
No,
The previous councils gave you the money to do the work. It didn't get done. That's the bottom line. Any way you wanna cut, did it not get done?
I think that's a misrepresentation of how we've handled these projects. And we have continually worked on engineering. We redesigned the plan so that it would come in less. We're not missing $1.5 million. We know exactly where every cent went. We know that costs have risen. You should know that better than anyone with your project, how costs have gone up exponentially. And when you issue debt 4 years ago, the costs are gonna go up. In this case, a total of 16%. So you're gonna see the cost just climb. That's the nature of the beast right now, unfortunately, until we get inflation under control. So that's why we're in the position we're in. It just kind of snowballed from multiple projects.
Well, I want to separate them. I mean,
Understood.
that's something we have to do. The public works we don't have to do, because I think I'm like Blake, it's way
Can,
inflated.
can I speak to that?
I got
So-
Mr. Hancock.
Let me just say that, my feeling about it is, we have had so many emergency projects. I mean, we can say the sewer plant is an emergency, but it's not an emergency like a collapsed sewer line down Wharton Street is an emergency. And, we seem to have regular, unplanned emergencies, and I can understand that if we haven't been analyzing the quality of these lines and projecting their usability into the future and all of these things, but it just seems to me like there's no end in sight to these emergency water and sewer lines and utility projects that we have to do. I mean, when collapse, it has to be done. And I think we need to be as frugal as we can until we can figure out just what the future holds for us and how many of these lines we have to replace and how we're gonna pay for them.
Yeah,
My
and
fault.
the good news is we hired Matt Glaze, and he's putting together a CIP for us. So I think what I'm hearing you say is, let's focus on infrastructure in the ground right now.
We gotta give them water, we gotta give the sewer
That's right.
taken away. We don't necessarily have to give them an office building, even though I can understand it'd be a
Understood.
nice thing to have, and I like building buildings.
I understand.
Councilman Koblenz.
So the observation I just want to make, and I did ask the question and didn't make any comment, but I did ask the question of Kevin, is what is the square footage? And he said proposed 8,000. So I don't know, what is the current building?
Just under 3,000, about 29.
3,000, okay. So obviously, if you take the 2.8 and the 3.5, yeah, that is astronomical per square foot. But if you take a proposed 8,000 at the 2.8, I'm just putting this in perspective. I did a little bit of math here. That's like $350 a square foot. That in our current market, depending on what's in the building, if it's an open shell, that's high. If you go all the way to the 3.5, then it's 437. That's on the high side. I'm just lending some perspective to this. When we think of, well, that is just astronomical for 3,000 square foot. Yes, it is, but it's not the full picture. Now, I'm not saying whether I'm for or against. I'm just making an observation.
Thank you. Thank you
And
for,
before we hire an architect, before we hire bond attorneys and all of that, maybe we could just take a look at a presentation where we see what Public Works needs, what they're gonna put in this building, what they need the space for. Just review the overall concept before we go to hiring architects and whatnot.
Second that, and that is actually what Councilman Ward talked about too. Really and truly, guys, it would be nice
to have some kind of
to
presentation.
see.
We can bring a presentation back.
I mean, is it a pickup with a bed on it, or is it just the motor? I mean, that was kind of elementary
Agreed.
there, but
So Courtney, can you explain a little bit about what's the impact if we don't go the direction, and I'll say, approve with moving forward with the entire package? What does the future look like then, and what are we gonna be looking at as far as if the building does come back? What is that cost gonna be then? You know, and so the staff is making a proposal to roll this together, and there
Yes.
had to be reasons for that.
The reason we
And
were
so-
asking you to consider rolling it together and recommending it
Yeah,
was because we wanted to avoid dual issuance costs with financial advisor and bond counsel. But the cost of the building, the most recent engineering estimates we had were from 2022. We added 8% to that.
understand. And I guess my thoughts there is that eventually you're gonna need these buildings and these resources and all this, right? And it helps, there's a lot of things that it helps. I guess, I mean, I'll come out there and say it. I'm for it. I'm for it. I'm for the building. I'm for all this, because I think we need to move forward with all these things to keep progress moving forward in the town. You know, for good or for bad, you know, as far as that. We're always gonna be talking about tax rates. We're always gonna be talking about a penny here, a penny there. We're always gonna be talking about that. But at the end of the day, that building's gonna cost us way more in 2 more years than it's gonna cost us right now. But so anyway, that's my thoughts.
That
on
was
it.
that was our sentiment as well. We spent a lot of time, originally, when we were preparing this agenda item, we only had the treatment plan on it. And, we started talking about adding this in because I wanted to see what it meant to your tax rate. I felt like a penny was palatable. But I'm not the one that votes on that tax increase, so that's easy for me to say. But if you separate these and you issue debt next year, you're gonna pay all those costs all over again. Not to mention, you have a debt ceiling of 10 million, so if something comes along and we have to do it, you're tying your hands. That's what happened last year. We've had this building, this house 3 years. We've owned the land 3 years. We thought a decision needs to be made as to what you want to do with it, so that house doesn't continue to sit empty on East Jackson. And that was our thought about moving forward.
I'd like to follow,
One thing, you mentioned about just a house, and it's more than just the house and the addition. It's also the parking lot, the drainage, the
Landscaping.
improvements to the front, and
Sidewalks.
rescuing
That's not
one of
what
the
they were presenting.
finest architectures in our town. Now, that old house, as you put it, it's an old house, sure, but it's very well built. It was looked at before that. But it's also, as you drive into town, you're gonna see that as when you're coming in town, you're gonna see that. And that's gonna be more indicative of what we are as a city. That's the way I look at it, and that's just my perspective. But at the same time, those costs are not just that. It's the drainage, the parking lot, the improvements to the plumbing, the upgraded to the electrical, having a place to train our guys and stuff like that. That's all that's included in that.
And room for growth.
But that building,
And room for growth.
with that being said, though, your 8% is not enough. I can tell you it's at least 25%, based upon the conversations I've had with our engineers and procurement team. That's how much it's gone up, and they do not anticipate construction costs going down. They do not, mostly labor. Labor is gonna be a challenge. And now you have a geopolitical situation going on that's gonna drive the materials up. But that was my point. The Public Works Committee may be discussing this building, but the rest of us aren't aware of anything that's really going on. I wasn't on council when that building was purchased. I wouldn't have purchased it. I would have found you land and built you a new facility with everything, but that's not what we were presented here. We were said a building. It didn't say what all was involved in it. That makes our decisions a little easier and more palatable, and we probably could have avoided some of this conversation.
And it'd be great to be able to bring that up and show the entire council.
We can bring that back at the next meeting,
I'm done.
and we will. We'll bring images of the existing building, the proposed building, the options on the proposed building, so you can make a good decision on this.
And those projections that the architect did were taking those inflationary, because we bought it in '22, but actually those numbers were during the height of where everything was going like this. They're still up there, but they're not continuing to grow.
Well, I'd like to say something. I'm gonna go along with, Councilman, Wallace. I think, the wastewater treatment plant we need, and I think I think we need to package it together. I'll be honest with you. I'm not for saving the house. I think we need to just, build a new building and move forward with all that stuff. And, we can sit here and talk about it. 3 years have gone by and nothing has been done. We've been talking about it, talking about it, talking about it. We're here to help make decisions, to get this city to grow. We gotta make sure that we got a decent wastewater treatment plant. We gotta make sure all of our infrastructure is right. It's not things that we need, things that we want, it's things that we need, and if any of you have been to the Public Works Department, we need a new building. We gotta have a new building. If we can't do it, we can't do it, but all it's gonna do is get more expensive. All it's gonna do is, sit there. It's not gonna get any better. It's gonna get more expensive. We don't need to be kicking the rock down the road, the can down the road. We need to all think about this real hard, and we need to make a decision of what we're gonna do here. We all sit here, we all want the city to grow, we all want the city to get better. Nobody wants taxes to go up. Nobody wants to, make things higher. We don't wanna get our citizens upset, but we gotta do the right thing, and we gotta make a decision, and we gotta move down the road. Whether we, there's things that we need, things that we want, but we gotta do the right thing, and we gotta, sometimes it takes, we gotta issue debt. We just gotta bite the bullet and we gotta do it. So,
Mayor, would you be opposed to taking the building, to the Public Works building to the voters?
What I might suggest, Mayor, is that we get direction tonight on the wastewater treatment plant. Let's
I was gonna say
talk
the
about the
same thing.
Public Works facility
Can we make a motion
a
to go
couple of weeks
forward with
from,
the
in
wastewater
2
treatment
weeks, when
plant
you have
tonight?
enough information to make
I'd
a
like
good
to separate
decision?
them.
Because we did not present you with enough
And then
information to make a
immediately
good
go,
decision
continue
tonight.
to study, what we think we need as far as,
And-
the building is concerned, but I think we certainly need to, from what you tell us, to move forward with the wastewater treatment plant, no matter how we finance it, and keep on going, and let's study the other issue and say, get a description of what we're trying to build,
sure,
what we need the space for,
right.
maybe what the interest rates are projected to cost us, and a few things like that.
She's got that. And like to Councilmember Ward's point, we can make sure that 8% is valid. So we can get you a hard number from a couple of local contractors can probably work with us to get us multiple estimates, so we can make sure that number is good in both scenarios, so we can ensure these were the numbers she had with both issuance in there. If you were to do that, it was $133,000 on an annual basis. But you see that starts to taper off as you move in. That's where the penny comes in. And then on the utility side, you're seeing the debt taper off regardless of whether you issue this issuance or not. It just kind of holds it steady, goes up next year, but then it comes right back down because you have some debt coming off in the future. Yeah, she'll show you there. You see some debt coming off. You've got one retiring this year and one retiring next year, and so you'll see some debt peeling off. The utility side can withhold the debt without rate shock.
1.7%.
On the general fund side, you are looking at that tax increase though.
Yeah.
It made good
So
sense then.
if that's the prerogative of the council, we'll be happy to bring this back. We could even bring in the architect we were working with.
Can we make a motion to approve the wastewater plant tonight?
You're not approving, you're just giving us direction,
Okay,
so we
all
will
right.
be bringing it back to you in the form of financing.
But let's,
We need a,
let's assume we want you to do everything you can to proceed with it before we finalize the thing.
Sure.
I mean, if you need to hire an engineer, if you need to get some more estimates or anything like that, let's move hard forward with the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah,
So at this time, item number 4, that we were discussing and considering the funding of wastewater treatment plant, improvements to the public works facility. We're not taking any action, nothing. Staff is gonna come back to us and, with another presentation of what, what direction that they're wanting us to go, and then we'll vote and go on there, from there.
yes, we can do that. Thank you.
Your numbers may not be that 8% if I didn't know he had, once again, we didn't, if you may be okay with that,
Nope.
8 to 10.
We clearly need to do a better job of how we presented this item. So we will bring you back an abundance of information at the next agenda.
Okay, with that being said, we're gonna move on to item number 5.
Let me just make one comment. Tom, you're the guy here at the table that really knows a hell of a lot about what construction costs and has ideas about that, and we really appreciate your input.
Sure, thank you.
We do.
Item number 5, fiscal year 26 budget calendar.
There's no action required on this item unless you need us to change a date. But otherwise, it is in your packet with the dates for next year's budget. Please be mindful of, a couple of the dates on there are really important meetings when you take some votes.
Can you say those dates?
It's not, wait, I've got it in front
Can
of
you
me.
email me those dates?
I can email you those dates. I can probably pull it up really quick. I have the packet and
There it is right
those particular dates that are of most importance would be, July 28th. If we need to move it, we can. That's doing it a little early this year to give you time. And September 8th, those 2 dates. September 8th is the most important one.
All right. That being said, we will move on to item number 6. Discuss the calendar, discuss and consider moving the regular meeting of the city council scheduled for March the 10th, 2025, to March the 11th, 2025. The reason being is the Monday night scheduled meeting is the El Campo Volunteer Fire Department oyster supper. And that we can move the date until the following day, which is Tuesday, on the 11th. So, would anybody like to make a motion on moving that
So
meeting?
moved.
Second?
We got a motion and a second to move the regular scheduled meeting from March the 10th to March the 11th, 2025. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.
thank you for catching that, Courtney.
Oh, thank you for catching that,
Wonder
Kaylee.
Where are they gonna get all these oysters this year?
I know, oysters are plentiful this year.
Okay, we're gonna move into item number 7, reports.
We only have the one,
That's it.
chief. It is our police department racial profiling report. He is required to annually present this to council.
Correct. This is a required report of every police agency in Texas, and it shows our traffic stops, and it breaks it down. If you look at the report, I've included it. It's 9 pages of pretty much everything you could ever want to know about a traffic stop. If we made arrests, if we didn't make arrests, if we made searches, if we didn't make searches. You know, I review it each year. Actually, during the year, I review it, and I look for anomalies. I look for things that, one big thing that in the past that I found was if I start noticing, one of the things is whether or not we search a vehicle. If you look through these numbers, the vast majority of vehicles we do not search. So if I see an uptick in that, a large amount change of that amount, then I start looking at, well, what's the purpose of it? I haven't seen it. Only time I've ever seen it was many years ago when I was at Sugar Land, and that was because they had upgraded the court's computer system, and they changed the value from Y to N. And so instead of, 90% of stops being no searches, they became searches. And then we had to go back, and when I looked at it, I went, this is crazy. It made no sense. It took me about a week to figure it out. But and one of the things I look for too is this thing has changed through the years, and I've never, in all the agencies I've worked for, never identified an issue with that. I think our officers do a great job. They're not profiling people. If you notice in here, the vast majority of the stops we make, we don't know the race of the person before we make the stop. It's many times difficult, to see who you're stopping, either the window tint or it's at nighttime, so, it's a guess as to who you're stopping. And so I can tell you this year, I had 0 complaints from the public on stops as far as racial profiling. In fact, since I've been chief, I haven't had a single complaint. And I think that's indicative of our officers and the job they're doing. I think they're fair in how they enforce the laws.
Well, Chief, we appreciate the report, and we appreciate everything y'all are doing for us and for this community, and y'all are doing a fine job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep up the
Appreciate it.
good work. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, it is 6:51. We'll be going into closed session, out of regular session.
We don't need Kevin.
You seem to have done well with our.
Sorry, we don't need you. We're pulling it. don't,
No, you don't.
if it makes it too hard.
You got it, Kaylee? Yes, sir. Okay, at this time, we're out of closed executive session, back into regular session, and no action taken. At this time, this meeting's adjourned.